Three, two, one. All right, guys, welcome to the Gap Podcast, where we talk about careers, education, lifestyle, and the journey through it all. I'm here with my buddy Rob that I met this past, I get, if you want to call it, venture at the Future Flipper Mastermind event. Me and Rob have become pretty close since. How you doing, Rob?
Good, man. Good, man. Thanks for having me on the pod.
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. I'm excited to get into this episode. So have you listened to any of my episodes of the podcast?
Yeah.
If you haven't,
have,
first, shame
actually.
on you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, man. I love that you're getting this pod going. I listened to your last one with the flight attendant. Oh, fantastic episode, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, Steph is a sweetheart. I love her. Met her at a festival, actually. So, well, I guess music event, if you want to say that. But, yeah, we've become pretty close, just staying in touch over Instagram and stuff. So that's always been pretty cool. All right, man. Well, we can just hop right into it, though. Thank you for listening, So basically how we start out is, when you were in high school, what'd you want to do? What kind of shaped you? Who shaped you? Just give us your background, where you're from, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. We'll keep it, step by step. So high school, yeah, I had no clue what I wanted to be. I just knew that I wanted to do something easy, just get through life without trying.
No,
because I know I was
18-year-old kid wanted to do something easy.
I was like 14, 15, and I was literally like cheating on everything, and it was bad news.
What was your go-to cheat method?
Dude, Spanish class, all the English words translated in Spanish right on binder in the slip on your feet.
That's great. That's great. I got caught cheating one time. It was in bio class, 9th grade bio class. I'll never forget. We had drawers. So we sat in like these desks, and it was a lab. So we had like these drawers that pulled out, and I put like a piece of paper in the drawer with like all of my notes. And like, you know how like most teachers are like female teachers, and like they wear these annoying like you hear it like clicking, so you know when they're coming. Well, this was like a male teacher, and he had sneakers. Dude, he was like a ninja. Like I had it open, and I was like looking down, and I just remembered him being behind me, and I just felt his presence, and I was like, "Oh God!" And like he like took my test. I get like super red. Heart dropped. I was like, "Oh no!" I got an F for that. Yeah, for sure. So. Yeah. So that was my first and only time cheating.
Oh man, I gotta bring you up to the dark side.
Yeah.
Although that, I'm not at school anymore, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I mean, we can use Google for free all the time, and it's not cheating. So, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, though. You were cheating in high school, getting by.
Yeah, so cheating in high school, man, I just getting by, and on the contrary, I was playing football, I was playing basketball on the team, different seasons. So all year round, I was training. And there's a big reason why I was unable to study, just because I was training all year round. And after that, I knew I wasn't going to go into college ball. I just wasn't all that great. I wasn't tall enough, all that good stuff. And then I graduated, and I ended up going to a university out here, one of the UCs in the UC system here in California. Which was amazing because I cheated and everything. So naturally, my GPA was not great. So yeah, that started my college career. Okay.
Yeah. No, but let's back up a little bit. When you're like in high school, like when you went to college, like how did you pick what you wanted to do? Did you have any idea, or did your parents tell you like, hey, you should do this? Like, did somebody you looked up to did something and that's why you did it? Like, how did you pick? What'd you go into when you went into college?
So I went into business school. So the reason why I chose business school was because my dad was always in business, and I look up to my dad a great deal. He kind of shaped me more so than many people in my life, and he was always he did retail. So I was just like, naturally, I'm gonna do that too. So I got a business degree, and that was my initial kind of decision making process as an adult. It's like I want to get a business degree because I want to be just like my dad, kind of, you know, just want to be, do what he did, and the story goes on, but that's how I just naturally chose getting a business degree.
Nice, nice. So I mean, but like that was the only reason you didn't really there was nothing that like fascinated you. It was just your dad. He did business, so you were like, I'm going to do business. That was it.
Yeah, I know I didn't want to be an engineer or a doctor, and those are the other two options.
Business, engineer, doctor. It's funny because everyone that's been on the pod has basically said that. Like, I felt like when I was coming out of high school, you could be like a dentist, like a doctor, or like a scientist, and that's it. Like, all right. So you did the UC school and you cheated. All right. So like, how was college for you? Was it easy then?
College was essentially easy. Just I wasn't cheating all that much, but I wasn't getting good grades at the same time. So I ended up dropping out my third year.
Oh, really?
Which was a whole roller coaster of a ride. Yeah. So
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I ended up dropping out third year, and then I was just working, kind of.
So why'd you drop out? Bad grades? Was it just bad grades, or you just didn't
purely
want to
bad
do it?
grades?
Okay.
Purely bad grades. Yeah. I literally just was like, I'm quitting. I literally just told everybody in my life I'm quitting because if I finish out this quarter, they're gonna kick me out. It's just gonna happen. So I made the decision to quit.
Man, that's a big decision.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh yeah, I'm done.
So.
Did you go and talk to anybody about that? Like, hey, can I get some help? Or did you not really try to do any of that?
No, man. It was just one of those spur of the moment decisions. But the story does get a lot lighter. So, I mean, I was working a minimum wage job and just had to kind of, figure things out. So I did end up coming back to finish, but it was a roller coaster of a ride to make it.
Well, let's go through that. Take us through that. Like, so you quit college. Like what was your like? What'd you do? Like, what went through your head? Like, oh, like I'm done with college. Now what? Like,
yeah. So
take us through that roller coaster, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I initially quit, I essentially said, F college, I'm not going back. And then I was going to make it on my own. This is when I first started getting into self-education and just like whatever kind of businesses you can figure out. Given I was a business major, I just was trying to figure out something to do, make money. And then in the meantime, I got a job as a dishwasher. There was nothing else I was paying. So... Yeah. And then I 6 months go by, I get promoted to line cook, and I'm like, dude, line cook, this is cool. And then I realized quickly, like within a month, I'm like, that's the same goddamn thing. You're working in a kitchen, it's 105 degrees, and that's not what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And then I just made the decision to go back, and a lot of it was, I literally had to like. Because, I was going to like festivals and things like that, and I was doing a lot of those things that come with it. And I had to just kind of get away from all that for a good like 4 or 5 years, and then finish all my schooling, and then kind of just get back into the social circle of life.
Yeah, I mean, my wife worked in like the service industry for a while. I mean, it is like a whole lifestyle, dude. Like, I mean, like every night. Everybody's going out, everybody's drinking, like everybody's blowing their paycheck that they just made. Right. Like it is wild. Like that's why I get so mad when I hear like servers and like people. I know that not everybody does this, but like younger servers like complain about how much they make because all they do is just go and blow at the bar afterwards. It's like I hear like people like when my wife was working there like complaining like, oh, I only got a $7 tip. Meanwhile, like they're like, I got a $50 tip. Let's go to the bar. I'm buying drinks. It's like, okay,
Right,
so now
right.
you just turn
It's
that
counterintuitive almost.
$50 into a $7 tip.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, man. So was it hard to get back into school? Like, did you have
Yeah.
issues?
Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest things I had to do. I definitely had to kind of work my way back into school. I had to write a letter to the dean and kind of essentially tell him like, hey, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna get straight A's, and I'm gonna pass this, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I kind of told my whole story of like how I don't want to be working a minimum wage job anymore. I kind of just like laid it out.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was even actually to my dean. I think it was the president of, each university has their own school. I think it was the president of the business school.
Probably. I mean, you're probably better off going like target marketing that guy instead of like the dean. The dean probably would have looked at him like, I don't care.
Dean is like, I don't care.
Cool, man. So you did it take a while, or did you get right back in? Or did you have to wait for them to like accept you back into it?
No, I ended up starting. So January was the start of a quarter. I had sent my letter in. I think it was either late October. I think it was late October, and they got back to me before you needed to sign up for classes for January, which is like end of November. So like middle of November, they got back to me, and sorry, I got to sneeze.
No, you're fine. So they got back to you like faster than most like companies get back to you.
Right. Yeah,
companies
so they got back.
Companies ice you for like 3 months before they like get back to you. Like, oh yeah, we'll look at your resume.
Yeah, exactly. So I think school is a little different because you're paying them. So
yeah,
they just want somebody who will get through the program. So yeah, I ended up going that January, and I went back into it. I got straight A's, and I passed, and I went on to do my master's actually.
All right, so that's interesting. Like, you were in school, you didn't really see the benefit of it. You weren't doing great grade-wise, and then you dropped out, did the line cook thing, and then you came back and you got straight A's. So was it just mindset shift, or was it you just started caring a little bit more? Like, what was that? Like, what was that shift for you?
I think the mindset shift was, something lit a fire under my ass. And essentially, I was in a position where I was thinking, I don't want to work as a line cook anymore. That's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought I said, college will get me away from that. So I just literally like stopped the partying, stopped the drinking, stopped the drugs, stopped everything, and essentially went full on school. And every waking moment I was studying for about a year.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Fire lit under your butt. Okay, cool. Go from there.
So, essentially, I knew I didn't want to ever work a minimum wage job again, and college was kind of the answer to that problem.
Yeah.
And I literally every waking moment for about a year, I studied books. I read what I needed to read. I did all the material work and time and everything that you can think of an A plus student. I did it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I had no idea what an A plus student was until that year. So I figured it out on my own.
I took AP classes. For me, when I was in college, I as a chemist major, I wouldn't say that I had it easy. I studied pretty much every day, pretty much till we went to bed. A lot of times we pulled all-nighters. I mean, I didn't study every day, but I definitely studied. I would say a lot more than I saw other people studying. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like, if you want to get those A's, you gotta study, especially like on the harder degrees. Like, if you're not reading the textbooks, if you're not doing the homework, you're not gonna do good. And I think it would be like interesting to like. I don't know how it is for you, but for me, I wish I would retain more in college. A lot of the stuff I did was just studying to learn it for a test instead of learning it for an application. So that's like one thing I really wish like the school system would change. I wish they still you still need testing. You can't not test, but I wish they tested more for application than they tested just for like regurgitation. I think like one way to help that would be like having tests where you build upon your last test instead of just saying like, hey, I learned this. Okay, rinse, repeat. Like I'll learn this next, like, whatever. I don't know for business for you, like if like stuff stacked, but in chemistry, you would like learn something, it kind of stacked, but not really. Like once you learned it, you could kind of just like forget about it. I would say that's why most people fail in organic chemistry. Because those first 3-4 weeks, if you don't learn the core fundamentals of organic chemistry, you're gonna fail the rest of the course because literally everything is built on the first 3 to 4 weeks. So I think that's why I was so good at organic is I truly understood like that core fundamental like principles, and then I could just like use that throughout like the rest of the. So I thought that was really cool. Also, like my mind worked really well with how like electrons moved. Like is like okay, like if this comes in and attacks, if you have this atom that attacks this, like all the electrons shift, and that's why this kicks this out. I don't know. Right. Organic for me, it always made sense. I loved it. That's what I was gonna go for like a PhD, and like I said, it just never worked out. But all right, yeah, cool. Enough about me. Let's get back more into you. So you graduated straight A's after you dropped out.
Right.
I mean, I know overall you didn't have straight A's, but like it's still awesome that you got straight A's after you dropped out. So yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a matter of 12 classes, I believe, and I got straight A's in all 12 classes, and the only way I would have been able to pass the curriculum, the 4-year curriculum, was to get all straight A's on all 12 of those classes. Like A minus was already pushing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then which kind of bled into me getting a master's, and it was a great story in my letter, intent letter, and all that. So yeah.
You have a master's? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. So I got a master's in business as well. But it's a concentration on entertainment, media, and sports, which is something I completely don't involve myself in.
Do you use that information at all or not really?
So I do use that information to a certain degree. Not involving 100% is actually not the right thing to say because I've been trying to work on this kind of short series with a buddy of mine who's an actor out here in Hollywood. Okay. And, we're just trying to see where it goes. But that aside, I don't actually have a career in entertainment. So it's funny how I ended up with a degree in it.
That is funny. All right. So you went to school. You did your thing. You got your MBA. And then you came out of college and... what then? Like, did you have any clue what you wanted to do, or like, how'd you figure that out?
Yeah, so let's take it back one step.
Okay.
In addition to my story is that after I graduated with my undergrad, I was working for a company called Viacom, which is an entertainment company out here in Los Angeles, and that was actually
isn't that like NBC? Isn't that like an affiliate of like NBC?
No, so CBS News and Viacom.
Oh yeah, sorry, CBS. Okay,
so
okay, that's what
and
it is.
Viacom owns like Nickelodeon, MTV, BET, all these kind of like old school like entertainment kind of big guys, whatever you want to call it. And so I was working for them for about 1.5 years while I was getting my master's. And that's why I chose to do an entertainment degree, thinking I would stay in that field.
Yeah.
But then I ended up, graduating or, quitting right before I graduated. And right before I graduated, I opened up a Baskin-Robins. So this was all happening in my MBA while I was taking classes.
You quit your MBA?
No.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Take that back. Wait, you quit what? What did you quit? Because it sounded like you were like before I quit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Quit Viacom. Quit Viacom.
Yeah, I quit
Okay.
Viacom.
I was like, wait a minute. Did you
drop
just
out
say
of
you
two
got your
schools.
MBA? I was like, what? Did you really drop out of your MBA? That's funny. All right, yeah. So you quit Viacom. Is there a reason you quit Viacom? Like, well, okay. Let's actually get into that. What was that like? Did you like? What was like the culture like? What was the pay
Yes.
like? You know, was it fun to work there? Did it suck?
Yeah, the first 6 months were fantastic. However, we went into the pandemic, like the last year or so I was working there,
Yeah,
which made the culture just take an airplane crash down. It was a terrible culture to be around because you couldn't connect with anybody. I think any corporate position, people felt this. And it was something that I couldn't have, I couldn't, I never liked having a boss to begin with, and a boss telling me virtually what to do all day long was just not going to fly.
like micromanaging sucks that it is, but then micromanaging on the computer is even worse.
Exactly. So that was a big reason why I decided to leave, but I kind of set it up in a way where I stayed as long as I needed to until I started to open my own business.
Cool. What did you do at Viacom? What did you do every day? What was your job title and what did you do?
So my job title was channel launch coordinator, which meant, but it was for a subsidiary of theirs called Pluto TV, which is a free streaming service.
Yeah.
I don't really care to advertise it on the pod, but you asked.
No. Because that's one thing that I want to delve into it more too is people's when you jump from one job to another job, where did you see the channels that grow there? Was there channels that grow, or is it just kind of you saw people stuck that have been there for a while, or did they hire people up fast? How long were you there first off?
I was there for 18 months.
18 months. Okay. So, I mean, you saw a lot. I mean, that's a decent, a year and a half. It's a long time with a company. I mean, give and take. You get to see the ins and outs of a company when you're there that long. What was your channels upwards? Did you not like that channels upwards and that's why you got out?
Yeah. So the channels
or is it just
upwards,
because of the culture?
The channels upwards, that was the main reason leaving. The culture was kind of diminishing in my eyes. However, it wasn't a full-on reason to leave. The main reason was if you already made it to somewhere mid-level to top level, you got treated like royalty. Anybody under that was treated essentially like trash. And that's a very strong word to use, but that's how I felt. And I'm not gonna sit here and not say what I felt, And
no.
So there was no upward
that's
incline.
That's what this is all about. I want people to get honest opinions, people that aren't afraid to for a company to sue them. I don't think Viacom's gonna listen to this, but we're gonna sue Rob for defamation. You know what I mean? But I want people to see what it's actually like how easy it was to move up. If it wasn't if you had to move lateral to move up. Because I think that's a big thing with bigger companies is you'll get stuck in this little I don't know group and to move up because your manager is 35, he's been there for only 2 years, you're not going to get that position, so you got to move out of that little group to move up. I don't know, for me when I was in corporate, that's what I saw a lot. You had to move lateral to then move up. So to move lateral, you're doing a job that you didn't go to school for. You have no clue how to do. Was that the same way in Viacom? Did you see that?
Yeah, so I felt at Viacom that definitely you needed to move lateral before you moved up.
Yeah.
For example, this alone will kind of explain the whole situation. My direct boss got 2 title changes moving upward before, and I still hadn't even gotten anything even after I left up until the time I left. He got two raises, and it's just like, they just like hold each other's hand, I feel, and everybody underneath gets left behind.
Yeah. So in my humble opinion, I think if you've been with a company for 1 year, you need to ask for either a raise or for a promotion. Right. Because if you don't set that standard early, then you're just kind of like, just kind of churning a little bit, So that's my big takeaway from like the corporate world is like make sure you hammer it like hard and early, set like that. I guess the expectation of like, hey, I'm here for like a career and I want to move up. And if you don't have that conversation early, there's other people that are having that conversation, so you'll get looked over. But that's just from my person. I wanted to see if you felt the same way in another company. Because Viacom is a pretty big company.
Right. I completely agree. I did ask for a couple raises right when I hit about like 10 months in is when I asked for my first raise. And, there you go. I just kept getting the runaround. So after asking 3 times, you just got to start looking at your other options.
Yeah. All right. So you didn't get the raise. You're like, hey, F this. I'm out. You go to, you start your own business. So talk about that. How'd you figure this out? Like, what was your avenues? Like, how'd you land on this?
Yeah, so I ended up finding a good deal buying a Baskin-Robins, which is a crazy 180. Going from corporate entertainment. And, oh man, can't get enough. I had 2 scoops today. It's unreal.
I'd probably be like 500 pounds if I owned a Baskin-Robbins. I eat so much ice cream.
So I ended up.
But yeah, it was a 180.
Yeah, it was a 180, and I got into Baskin-Robbins. And along this journey, I started self-educating in real estate, which is my main kind of, passion, my main goal to succeed in, all those great words that you can use. I definitely think real estate is my freedom giver.
Okay. How long have you owned the Baskin-Robbins?
I owned it since 2021 July, which is
nice.
From this date, about 14, 15 months. So
what do you mainly do when you say you own a Baskin-Robbins? For many people that are like, oh, cool, you own it. Like, but what does that entail?
Yeah, so I have a different concept on business. I feel that any business you get into should be considered an investment. And the way I treated Baskin-Robbins was the first 8 to 10 months, I was there every single day, scooping ice cream, doing whatever I had to do to make sure this business ran correctly. And essentially, I, turned that into putting a manager in place, teaching her all the things I learned in those 8 to 10 months, and letting her start to run those things and kind of keeping a holding hand while still being apart from the business. I personally do not scoop ice cream anymore, and I think although many people still do, I think I have a different mindset on owning a business. It's more as an investment as opposed to a job, because I never wanted to buy into a job.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what they say. Like, if you own a business and you're still doing the work 100%, like, you don't own a business. You just traded a job for a job. So like that always hit me hard. It's like, okay, like, there's a bunch of people that say they own a small business, but it's like they're the only employee. They still do everything. They bring stuff out. They manage people. They talk to people. Like, I mean, I get it. Yeah, you own a business, but like you're just trading a job for a job. You don't really own a business. You're working in your business. You're not working on your business. So that's the mindset that you took then, right? It's like, hey, I have a business. I'm working on it. I want to make sure I give people jobs. I want to make sure I employ people. I'm turning a profit. that kind of stuff. So how do you evaluate that? Like, have you had to have any conversations with anybody like, hey, you're not really doing your job? Have you ever had to fire anybody? Have you ever, like, what's the hiring process like? Like, take us through that.
Yeah, so definitely had to fire some people right off the bat. I'll tell you that. Owning any business, it's brutal work, and you kind of have to be heartless. To some, like for example, if someone's stealing from you, how can you have a heart for that kind of a person? And I've gone through my fair share of that. I've gone through my fair share of like terrible customer service, where your employees are essentially like mad dogging your customers, and that's unacceptable. And so I've gone through firing, I've gone through hiring, and I've gone through. I spent as the owner, you mainly focus your time on your managers, your main manager and your assistant manager, and let the crew be managed by them, because essentially it's not my job to manage them. My job is to manage my manager as an owner.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. You manage the manager, and the manager manages everybody else. I mean that's how your structure, your reporting structure should work. Right. But with a small business, it's easy to let people like squeak by in that, because I'm assuming you don't have a CRM for your like employees where like they have like that reporting structure that they can like go in and look it up. Or do you? Okay, yeah. So, I'm sure like if you show up, they could be like, hey, Rob, I have this problem, instead of just going to the manager and telling them. So, yeah. Okay, so like, but like when you're looking at numbers, what do you like, how are you evaluating if your business is doing good? Like, it's cool, you own a business, you're running a business, like, I don't know. I never really had this conversation before, maybe 7 months ago. Like, what are you doing to make sure that business is running correctly? You're making profit. Like, what numbers are you evaluating to make sure you're making profit? Because sometimes cash flow is like tricky, because you see you're making $13,000 a month, and it's like, cool, we're making money. But then, ice cream costs $6,000 a month, and your employees cost, another $3,000, and overhead is another, $40,000, whatever the numbers are. What kind of margin are you trying to keep, and how are you making sure you're hitting those those KPIs, if you want to say?
Yeah, definitely making sure you are profitable is one of the biggest things that challenge you day to day, and the only way to kind of work through those things are through your proper accounting principles. If you don't have an accountant in place, it becomes very difficult to make sure you're profitable. So I would always say, to all your listeners, that have an accountant for any business that you run. And that's how you're able to kind of, okay, so I made X amount of dollars. Let's say you made $10,000, and then, your employees cost $3,000, your labor cost, your food cost another $3,000. You're left with $4,000, but someone's got to pay the rent. Someone has to pay the utilities. Somebody has to pay all these things, and you have to make sure you know what your fixed cost is and your variable costs are. And variable costs are essentially labor and food cost. And fixed costs would be like rent,
interesting.
utilities, etc.
I would think labor costs would be fixed, because you kind of know what the hours they're working and stuff.
Yeah, so, like in winter, as we go into winter right now, we literally...
Okay, that makes sense.
We do 140 hours a week, as opposed to summer where we do 220 hours a week in labor.
So would you say that's not a fixed cost just because you haven't been an owner long enough? Once you own that long enough that you'll understand how many hours, how many people you'll have to fill? Or do you think that's just yeah?
No. So I just kind of, so I feel that
I'm just trying to figure out, because for me, coming from Sears, when I worked retail, labor cost is fixed. They know how many hours, how many people they need to do. You know, I know a guy that owns Aritas, and he knows, like, in the summer, like, I have this many hours for employees. In the winter, I have this many hours. So, like, do you think, did you not get that information from the previous owner? Or, like, yeah, I'm just trying to work through that. Like,
Yeah, for sure. So, in restaurant and so there's like a few different classes of retail. There's restaurant retail, and then there's like, like for example, a liquor store, a Sears, where you're buying and selling a product that's already sitting in your location. So restaurant is a little bit different because the volume of customers is a little bit different. It's seen different, and the way it's seen different is, for example, if we're super slow, like if it's a rainy day, you're not gonna essentially plan for a rainy day
okay.
6 months in advance. So, sorry, my AirPods went out. So, so you're not gonna plan for a rainy day 6 months in advance, but you see how you can send somebody home when it's a rainy day, or you can close your shop early.
That makes sense.
And it's a little bit different.
Okay.
So that's why I think the different classes are kind of different in that regard.
No, that completely makes sense. You're cutting a day short, like 2 hours, because it's like, okay, it's, a Sunday on a rainy day. Like, no one's coming in past 4:00. Like, we'll just shut it down early, put a sign up, send everybody home early. I save money on, electric. I don't have to pay employees yet. So, okay, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah. Okay. But like, other than that, like, what's your biggest, what's the biggest thing you learned from being a business owner? Like, what did you think you knew versus what you actually know now, that you would like wish you would have known when you started out?
Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely go into it, when you're like, let me put it this way. When you're working corporate, there's always a guy above you. There's always somebody who you can go to ask a question to. When you go into business on your own, you are the last line of defense. Period. So, any question, any problems, you got to figure it out. Let's say if a freezer breaks down, or let's say, whatever happens in your store, you have to figure it out. Whatever it takes to figure it out. There's no last line of defense. You are it, essentially. That's what I learned the hard way.
Did you buy the business from somebody, I'm assuming? Then?
Yeah, so...
Like, was it like a old guy that just like wanted to retire and you just bought it off of him?
No.
Can you run through those? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go first, sorry.
I was going to say, can you run through the numbers too? Like how much it costs to like buy it?
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, it was bought from somebody who was very young. He was like in his early 40s, and he owned 5 Baskin-Robins, or 5 or 6, and he essentially wanted to get rid of this one because he got forced into it, which is a whole other story. So he ended up selling it to me, and it was a good location, good area. It was in a little bit of a rougher neighborhood. However, the specific area that I was in was pretty decent. So I just kind of jumped on it, and to kind of go over the numbers. So typically, if a store does like, let's say $500,000 worth of revenue, it'll be priced at like $250 or something along those lines. So the store I went in.
No, yes. I was just saying. Okay.
Gotcha. So yeah, the store I went into when I first took it over, it was about $479,000 in revenue, and I picked it up for $250,000.
Wow! So it makes $470,000 revenue in a year. Is that gross profit?
No, that's just revenue. Or is
that? That's just revenue
before all expenses.
Okay. Okay, cool. So like that's weird because like usually businesses are like CapEx almost, like, okay, if it brings in X amount, like it's worth. So if it brings in like 200,000, it's worth like 600,000. So that's interesting that like you're saying it's 400,000 and it's actually worth 250,000 or 200 whatever.
Yeah.
I always thought businesses were like actually pumped up compared to like pumping down.
Yeah. So when I say revenue, this is gross revenue. So this is not what your take home is. The take home is along the lines of like, you know, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 after all expenses. That's why, you know, it is essentially CapEx because you're taking home, let's say, $60,000. So it's worth you 50. It's CapEx by 5.
Sorry, I when I say gross profit and you said no, I guess I didn't listen to you completely. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, cool, man. That's awesome. It's cool to talk to an actual business owner too. Like you're young, like you're pretty successful in it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's all been blessings up until this point. So we're gonna knock on wood together.
Nice, man. Cool. Yeah, I mean that's super dope. You know, and that's not the end of the story too. Like, you know, I know. So for all my listeners, me and Rob met. It's called the Future Flipper Mastermind. Future Flipper is a program I'm in for real estate investing. Interestingly enough, me and Rob met at a networking event. Was it the Blue Oyster or whatever?
Yeah, man, what's it called? Something Blue Fan.
I think it was the Blue Oyster. Where my boy Isaac got kicked out because he wasn't 21. I wanted to give him my ID so bad, bro. So bad. Like,
dude.
All I had in my mind was like, dude, if I give him my ID and they take it, how am I gonna get home on my flight? That was like my only thought. I was just like, I can't give my ID to Isaac and then them like take it and then I don't get it back. So, but yeah, so we met at the Blue Oyster. It was a networking event. And dude, we just connected from like the get-go. Like, I don't know what it was, but, yeah, you were super cool. Like, I didn't even know you weren't in the program. I thought like everybody that went to that was kind of in the program, you know, initially. So how did you hear about it? Like, what made you go to that?
Yeah, shout out to Ryan Panetta, man. I've been following him since he first started doing content back in 2020. So that's how he pitched his mastermind, and essentially, I know he pitched it like every year since he started, since 2018 or something. So I essentially this year said, I'm doing it. I need to go to this mastermind. I need to learn. I need to, grow my, my network, whatever, so
yeah,
just made that jump.
Your network is worth your net worth is worth your network is what they say, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It's your network.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah, cool. But okay, so you came from Cali. You didn't know anybody there? You just were like, I'm going.
I had no clue. I just drove out, said, let's do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. So you get there. What was your, let's talk about the mastermind a little bit. Cause I haven't actually talked about it. I posted something on Instagram. Shame all of you for not messaging me. I was like, hey, post what you want me to talk about. No one messaged me. No one. So we can talk about the mastermind a little bit on here. I know I've always been a fan of Alex Ramosi. I followed him before he was big. My claim to fame, I guess, if you want to say. I follow Ryan Pineda. I started following Ryan when he was already getting big, but I followed Alex way before Ryan. That's mainly who I wanted to go for, was like Alex speaking. Because I knew Ryan, he wasn't really going to speak all that much, and I knew he really wouldn't be available all that much. So I was really excited to see Alex Ramosi. I know I got a lot of takeaway. I met a lot of good people there. We started a small group out of that, so that was cool. Just an accountability, making sure we're hitting our goals. Since we're all kind of in that real estate, lane, You're more in the land development lane, but I guess just take us through like, your real estate goals, like, because this is technically a side hustle for you. So like talk about like, what you plan to do, how like the mastermind affected you, what you got out of it. Let's just go through all that.
Yeah, so I definitely think creating it into a main hustle is the first primary goal.
Okay.
And
so Baskin the second in real estate the first.
Hustle. Yeah, Baskin-Robins is a side hustle. So I think how I got into it was many, many, many years ago. My dad took an attempt at building a hotel and failed miserably. Shout out to my dad.
Interesting.
Who definitely, went through some hard times through that. The reason why he failed was because it was the 2008 crash, and his claim to fame didn't work out all that well. So
it sucks.
In comes me of age and able to start working, and I decided to kind of self-educate, kind of hint that tell my dad like anytime I hear anything cool, I was like, "Hey Pop, like check us out. Like, what do you think about this?" And he's just always like puts it on the back burner. He's been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. And so I essentially take the reins and start finding deals, start looking at land, and then we started to just get going with it, build, renovate, whatever we can do to essentially get into the real estate space. The first condo I ever bought was in Las Vegas, which is funny enough, because the Mastermind Men event was out there. So yeah, just kind of got into it and kind of dragged my dad back into it as well. So yeah, that's how I first steps into it.
So you live in Cali, and you bought a condo in Las Vegas.
Yes.
How's that work? How'd you find that? Like, who was like, what? I mean, I know because you're like, hey, messaging about Oklahoma deals. You're like in Atlanta. I feel like you're always looking at like any kind of deal anywhere. But like, how'd you find that deal? Like, how'd you get into it? Like, did you have to get it funded? Did you have the cash lay inside? Like, go and run through that.
Yeah, so it was an MLS deal, and we got it for pennies on the dollar because it was during the pandemic where everybody was very, very scared, and some guy was just like, I need to just offload property. So here comes, Rav, and essentially I just said, I'll take it. So it was
Rav on the white horse.
Hey, man. Being in Future Flipper, you got to be the white horse.
If you had that long hair, you could be like,
There was a time I had long hair during the pandemic where barbers were not a thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, man. It was perfect time. I had long hair. I had the white horse. Yeah. So I rode in.
Floating in the air.
Yeah, so
cool.
I picked it up for $70,000. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo, about 650 square feet. And essentially, I put a renter in there, and he's been there for the last 2.5 years or so. And I get a consistent $400 or $500 cash flow every single month.
Nice.
Which,
what's your ROI on that?
It's about 6%.
6%? That's good. I mean, that's really good.
Yeah.
I know we talked about you like doing the midterm rental. Have you thought more about that? You gonna do that, or are you gonna just keep renting it like long term?
Yeah. So if this renter walks away, since it's already paid off, you take the risk and try to do a midterm rental, and essentially see what we can do with that. If we can make some more cash, we're making around like $6,000 a year. Whatever, $400 or $500 a month comes out to. I think it's like $5,000-6,000. And if we do midterm rentals, I was doing some math, and you can make up north of $10,000 on a single unit. How can you say no?
Yeah, I don't even think it was like north of 10,000. I think it was like 12,000 at like with a 6-month vacancy. It was like
Right.
literally double with a
Right.
6-month vacancy. Like,
Man, it's
it was
super hard
wild.
contingency.
Yeah, that's why, like, when we were running the numbers, I was like, yeah, because I initially was like, don't do it. Like, you have a good runner, like, just keep him in there. And then you were like, he only pays $800 a month. And then Jason was like, you get $2,000 a month for this. I was like, bro, like, just go ahead and do the midterm rental.
Right.
Like, don't listen to me. Do the midterm rental. So I'm interested to see if that works out for you.
Yeah, man. I'll keep you updated along the way.
Yeah. Cool. So you do land development. How did you get into land development? Because that's a really weird niche to get into. If you don't have like the excavating background, if you don't have like the engineering background, which I thought you did. I thought you had an engineering background.
Nope.
I did not know you had business background. So I'm very interested to see and hear how you got into land development, because that's not a super easy thing to get into.
Yeah. So I essentially just jumped right in. I started to self-educate on rentals. I started to self-educate on everything real estate related. Listening to guys like Ryan Pineda, Ken McElroy. I'm going to just shout out a couple people. A little bit of Grant Cardone, although I've always had a hard time listening to him, just because he's more of a sales pitch than anything.
Yeah, 100%.
And then
I don't know. Ryan's a pretty hard sales. Hold on, Ryan's a pretty hard sales pitch on everything too, though.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've had his attitude.
he hits a sales pitch hard though, hard. I mean, which is one of the main reasons I joined Future Flipper. Yeah,
every TikTok.
Yeah. But all right, so yeah, run through your people that you like again.
Yeah, so Ken McElroy, Chandler David Smith, Ryan Pineda, in no particular order. Grant Cardone, Kevin. He's a guy out here in California. He's great. He's kind of gravitated more towards stocks nowadays. So I stopped kind of listening to him, and then Graham Stephan would be another one.
Cool.
So yeah.
What's your favorite book on the self-educating side?
Yeah, so shout out to my Instagram page, Rav Develops. I have both my books listed. Two of my most recently read books are Ed Mylett, The Power of One More, and second one, that. Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And then I'm reading this book right here. Currently. Check it out.
Let's go.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see how this one pans out.
I gave you a shout out to look at Grant Cardone stuff, because he goes a lot into like the big deals. I personally haven't read his stuff, but he talks a lot about big deals like syndications and kind of like, getting like, your grade A, like complex, like apartment buildings. And the thing about it, and it makes sense. Like all these guys are like, hey, and that lady that always talks about like jobs that make you rich that aren't sexy, like the car wash and like the laundromat and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you can have this business and like you can have this small business. This small business takes just as much effort as like a large business. Like if you're running it correctly, like there's no more effort. So like, why wouldn't you want this like big business? So like, it's kind of like the same aspect that goes into real estate. Like it still takes the same amount of work to run, maybe like one residential, like, rental compared to running like one large, like complex unit. Because like when you're running the one large complex unit, you're talking to your manager who's managing everything, compared to like, when you're running one small residential, you're talking to like either your manager or you're talking to the people that like live in it. But either way, you're putting just as much. I mean, there might be a little bit more like that goes into knowing and stuff, but it's like the return on investment is just like astronomical on the big stuff. So yeah, Grant Cardone stuff. I mean, that's what I'm gonna read next. I think after Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad. Everybody keeps saying how good Rich Dad Poor Dad is, so we'll see.
Right.
I'll have to read it. So
yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great book. It essentially outlines the fundamentals of real estate and the fundamentals of what's an asset and what isn't an asset. It's just essentially the basics. So it's a great way to kind of just like hone in on your basics, and everybody knows that the basics is where, you kind of work from, like in sports and anything you do, it's always the basics. So it definitely does a good job at that. And, talking about Grant Cardone, yeah, I've been trying to get into these big syndication deals. They say you can do more with 5 people than you can by yourself. I forget the exact line, but if you get 5 people together, you can buy basically any big building you want, as opposed to, let's say, doing it yourself. That's why syndication is such a great thing. You bring a bunch of capital, a bunch of heads together, and kind of work together to achieve something bigger.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. I think that, I think that's great. We're right about at 60 minutes. If you want to go more into development, I'd love to take this episode a little bit longer. Is there anything you haven't talked about that you want to go into depth a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's nothing really that comes to mind, but I think land development, I never got to finish the thought. So how I got into land development is essentially, I knew that land developers were, did really well for themselves, and just kind of this, facade that I put up and continue to have allows me to kind of push forward into this career.
We'll fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying it.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm not really. I'm like 50-50 on fake it till you make it. I don't think you should fake it till you make it. Just for the simple fact that people sometimes can see through it. Like if someone's good and like they know, like when you try to fake it till you make it, you kind of almost make a bad impression because they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. I think it's like good to be honest. I think it's better to be fake it till you make it to people who have no clue what you're talking about. Wait, like if you're like explaining something and they don't know what you're talking about, yeah, dude, fake it till you make it. Like because then you look better. But like when you're talking to like people that are like been there, done that, I think it kind of hurts you a little bit because like when they like dive deeper, they're like, oh, like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm kind of like 50-50 on fake it till you make it. Like I get it. Like you have to have that confidence, but at the same time you have to have that like humble, like, okay, like, yeah, I need help. Like, and sometimes like when you come off as like, oh, fake it till you make it. It's like, oh, this dude's just a cocky person who thinks they know it all. Like, I don't want to have to deal with them. So I'm like 50-50 on that,
Right.
I always said, my motto was always like, dress, hold on. Feel good. I can't think of it. It was like, dress good, feel good or something like that. Like, I always felt like, not dress to impress. I can't remember the exact motto, but it's basically like, yeah, like how you dress is how you feel. Like if you dress like a slob, like you kind of sometimes feel like a slob, but like if you're like wearing like a collared t-shirt somewhere, like, like a nice button down, you like go to a meeting, like you look good. Oh, that's what it is. Look good, feel good. So like you look good and you're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah. I like, it kind of like boosts that confidence without you like having to actually do something. Cause you're like, man, like I look fly. Like I look good. I got some drip. Like,
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think, fake it till you make it is definitely something that's necessary at times and not unneeded at times. So I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, sometimes like if you go into a city building and essentially say this is my first deal, they're gonna just be like, they're gonna walk all over you. So yeah, I've had that experience. So things like that, sometimes in that regard, I think yes. But when you're building connections, you should definitely, be your honest self.
Yeah. Phil Garvin said, "Fake it till you ... can fake it bigger." I like that. He just sent me that like today. So, All right, well, cool, man. This has been like a really fun episode. Love how, you went through like trials and tribulations, and I know it's not been easy for you, we didn't even get into your background, being kind of like, I mean, I know you're first American, right?
Yeah, first generation.
Yeah, you're first generation, so like we didn't even get into that background. I know we've had like that conversation about like, some of the stuff that comes from being like a first generation, like, kind of things that you thought about what you can do. We can maybe leave that for another episode. But yeah, dude, I loved everything you got into, getting college, you dropped out, you got back in, straight A's, and it was all due to just straight like mental game. You brought that mindset, you did straight A's after you brought the right mindset. You got into this corporate job, you didn't like it, you got into like, you own your own business now. Now you're trying to get into real estate to make money. To make money where your main job, you're trying to make that your side hustle. So I love it. I hope my listeners love it. I do like to ask a question at the end. If you could tell your younger self, one thing, today, what would you tell? What would you say?
I believe I would tell him, Rav, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. You just gotta work at it. Yeah.
1 foot at a time, baby.
Yeah.
1 foot at a time. All right, guys. Well, this is the Gap Podcast. I'm Greg Baling, your host, signing off. Tune in next week. Sure we'll have a banger. Other than that, we'll catch you at another time.